Hello, everyone. I hope you're all doing well and welcome to Gemflix. Our special guest today is a familiar and highly regarded name in jewelry, Simon Teakle. Simon joins us today for some candid storytelling and a very special jewelry edition of 73 questions, which we're very excited to ask him. In case you are not familiar with it, 73 Questions originated from Vogue and is a series of rapid-fire, point-blank questions, many of them submitted by you to get to know Simon better. We'll invite Simon to share his personal stories first, and then we'll have the opportunity to ask him whatever we want after. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Lin. Along with Heidi, we founded Gemflix as a social club for people who love jewelry. We like to come together and learn from each other. And at the heart of what we do is curating events, both in person and online, to experience the world of jewels and gems together. Gemflix is a series of online chats that we've curated with industry leaders and jewelry masters. They are complimentary and open to all jewelry lovers. In lieu of event fees, we simply ask at this time that you consider a donation to a charity you care about. We've set one up for Doctors Without Borders, and that link should be popping up in your chat box. We hope that you will contribute what you normally would to an event like this for this very important cause. Today's talk is also hosted in collaboration with the National Arts Club. The National Arts Club is a 501c3 nonprofit with a mission to stimulate, foster, and promote public interest in the arts and to educate the American people in the fine arts. Annually, the club offers more than 150 free programs to the public, including exhibitions, theatrical and musical performances, lectures, and readings. You can visit nationalartsclub.org for more information. And we hope you will join us for an in-person talk with Simon when the club reopens. That is a day that we are all very much looking forward to. A couple of quick Zoom pointers before we get started. You have access to both a chat box and a Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. Please feel free to use the chat box freely, chatting with all attendees and panelists in this discussion. If you have a question for Simon, please type it into the Q&A box and we'll answer as many of them as possible to work it into our string of 73 at the end. And now, without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce Simon. Let's bring him in. Formerly the head of jewelry at Christie's, Simon Teakle has handled some of the world's most important gemstones. This includes the Agra Diamond, the Rockefeller Sapphire, and jewelry collections like those of Doris Duke and Elizabeth Taylor. He now curates a wide range of antique and vintage jewels at his Greenwich gallery, focusing on exceptional beauty and craftsmanship, no matter the value. The collection spans the 18th to 20th centuries with signed pieces from great jewelers like Cartier, Van Cleef and Arpels, Bulgari, Jar, and more. Simon, we are so excited to have you here with us today. Hello.
Oh, Lynn, well, it's great to be here, and Heidi, and thank you very much for inviting me. I feel very flattered. I think your organization is absolutely fantastic and keeping us all occupied in these curious times.
Yes, that is the hope. And we really are so excited to visit you inside your home as one of the benefits of Zoom. This feels like a very intimate get to know Simon conversation. For our participants, the first part of this talk will be a chance for Simon to tell us a handful of his personal stories, those which have been most memorable and compelling from his very sparkly jewelry journey. And of course, it's a chance for Simon to show us some of the beautiful jewels he's encountered. Following these stories, we get to turn the tables on Simon to ask him our other burning questions. So with that, I will turn the Zoom spotlight over to you, Simon.
Perfect, thank you, thank you. Well, I thought you have so many wonderful presentations at GemX and Gemflix. I thought I would just do something slightly different, and you all know about Cartier and you all know about diamonds and all that. But I thought some behind the scenes and personal stories might be a different way of looking at it and rather entertaining. And I've been lucky enough to be involved in some really great transactions, not only with the pieces, but with what the objects were. And I will start with, the Agra Diamond. There we are. Sorry, I got a slightly sensitive touchpad. We sold the Agra Diamond in 1990 when I was at Christie's in London. And I was a junior specialist, and I was learning, and really very inexperienced. But we got a telephone call from the north of Scotland, from a family who had the Agra Diamond and a collection of other extraordinary diamonds, including a stone called the Golden Drop, which was an 18-carat yellow diamond that was like a color as you can't imagine. But not to get sidetracked from the Agra. The Agra Diamond was first documented in the mid-16th century. It belonged to the Raj of Gwalior, and the first Mughal emperor defeated Gwalior at the Battle of Gwalior. And Babur saved Gwalior's life and his wife's life. And as a gesture and as a token of thanks, he gave him the Agra Diamond as well as the Kohinoor. It then remained in the hands of Mughal emperors all the way through to the early 18th century, where the ownership and its whereabouts became a little bit murky. And it then reappeared in the middle of the 19th century with a very colourful character called the Duke of Brunswick. And the Duke of Brunswick was one of the richest men in the world, and he was acknowledged to have one of the finest collection of gemstones. And he guarded them so jealously, and he was so attached to them, that the safe that they were kept in was in his bedchamber. And everything was protected by this very elaborate alarm system, including guns that went off if certain levers were triggered, or swords that would come down. It was all, and there's a story that apparently one of his house servants was actually killed trying to move something in the bedroom. But anyway, it was owned by the Duke of Brunswick, along with the Orloff Diamond, along with the Golden Drop, and many others. After his death, it went to London for sale and was bought by somebody called Edwin Streeter, a gem dealer, who actually recut the stone. And I'm going to come to the very tragic, what I think is the very tragic end of the Agra Diamond. He recut the stone into 31.5 carats. Where it was sold to somebody called Louis Winans, who was American from Baltimore. And he had been commissioned by the Tsar to build the Moscow-St. Petersburg Railway and made a fortune. And one of his passions was collecting stones. And he married a Scots girl. And then so after his death, the Scottish side of the family were bequeathed the diamonds. After that, they disappeared, and they just had, they sort of vanished from sight for 50 years. And during the Second World War, when everybody in Britain was terrified the Germans were going to occupy Britain, they were put in a biscuit tin and buried under an apple tree in the orchard. And they were never worn. It was the most wonderful, and this is the sort of personal aspect of it, the most wonderful, low-key Scottish family. And they needed a new roof for their rather large house, which is why they sold these diamonds. so the Agra, the Golden Drop, and a couple of others came to Christie's in London, and we were commissioned to sell it. We wanted to keep a little bit of a low profile because, I don't know, I think London, we always thought of ourselves a little bit as the sort of poor relations to Geneva and New York. Hong Kong sales didn't exist at that time. So we wanted to hear our voices heard. So we kept very quiet about the diamond and put it in our London auction. It was my first trip to New York when we went to exhibit it over there. And I remember the head of our special clients department organized this lunch. And I was asked to say a few words about this diamond. And it really is, oh, hold on a second. I completely forgotten. I don't know if I'm doing this properly. I made, at the time of the sale, I made a cubic zirconia copy. In fact, I made 4. One for the London office, one for the Geneva office, one for the New York office, and one for me. And it was, to this day, the most beautiful diamond I think I've ever seen. Just the softness of the color, the layout of the faceting. It was like a work of art in a stone. Anyway, I was asked to say a few words at a boardroom lunch, and I was sort of going on about this stone, rather like this. And the rich and rare of 5th and Park Avenue were there. And I said, if anybody ever wants a large diamond and be elegant and understated and not being flashy, then this is the diamond that you must own. And the first comment that piped out saying, honey, what's the hell wrong in being flashy? Which I think rather put me in my place. Anyway, it came back and it was sold for £4 million, which was about $7 million. Christie's had sold it in 1905 for 5,000 guineas. Christie's used to selling guineas rather than pounds, which was £1 and a shilling. And it was curious, we compounded, we wanted to see how prices compared. And 5,000 guineas, which we took an average, I think it was either 3 or 4%, and we compounded that amount of money up to 1990, and it came to £4.3 million. It was extraordinary how the value was essentially pretty much the same. Then comes the rather sad part of the story, where it was bought by a New York diamond dealer, and he recut the stone to 28 carats. And he got more life out of the stone, and you can see an image of the recut stone on the right. And one stone, for me, one stone has nothing to do with the other. It was exhibited at the Metropolitan Museum 3 or 4 years ago. It's part of the Altani collection with the Deccan exhibition that he had. And I almost wept when I saw it. And so, I don't know, rather on a rather somber note, I've started with a story that I think has a slightly unhappy ending, but it was really something that really galvanized me and gave me great inspiration in my jewelry career. On a happier story, this, I think, in my lifetime will be the most extraordinary situation I've ever been in my life. Again, it was a similar time to the Agra. And again, I was the number 3 in the jewelry department, and it was lunchtime and the telephone went. And this woman said, I have a piece of jewelry that I want to sell. Could you tell me the process? And it was a pair of sapphire cufflinks by Cartier. And I said, yes, well, if you come in and we'll give you an estimate and what we think they'll sell for at auction and a recommended minimum price, a reserve. Our commission is 10%, and then you'll get a check 30 days later. The process is very straightforward. And I said, you know, by all means come in and I'd love to see them. And she said, oh, I'm so sorry. I live about 100 miles outside London. I never travel to London. And I don't trust the registered mail. And I don't know what it was, but we have friends, Juliet and I, we have friends about 20 or 30 miles away from where she lived. And we were invited for the weekend. And I thought, great, this is a time, you know, this is an excuse for me to take a Friday off. So I took a Friday off, went to see her in, this isn't it, but just to sort of set the scene, a very nice, very pretty English cottage, but nothing to suggest what lay ahead. So up I went and got there at lunchtime on Friday. Took the cufflinks for sale, I think £4,000 to £5,000, put them in an auction. I think they sold for 5 or 6, and everybody was happy. About 2 or 3 months later, she calls up. She said, oh, Simon, that was really great. I was very pleased. Thank you very much. I have a blue diamond that I want to sell. And would you come and see it? And I thought, God, well, you know, it's a blue diamond, it's an aquamarine, you know, lots of people bring things in that they think it's something else. And but there was just something instinctive about this. And it also gave me an excuse to take another long weekend. So got in the car, we got in the car and off we went. And I arrive at her house and she shows me this. And inwardly, I panicked and I thought, oh my God, I have no idea what this is worth. It was a most incredible jewel. You have a 6 carat, and it was in the days when the GIA didn't have the grading of colored diamonds now. They just had fancy blue, fancy intense, or fancy light blue. There were very few categories, but this would have been a vivid blue, clear as day, 6 carats, a orange diamond of 4.5 carats, vivid, and then a beautiful 16 carat pear-shaped diamond, and it was just an astonishing thing. Anyway, I plucked up all the courage, and I was looking at the piece through my loupe, thinking, what am I going to say? What am I going to say? Pretending that I was examining the stone. Anyway, I took a deep, deep breath, and I said, I think it's worth £1 million. And she said, fine, no problem, take it, I'd like to sell it. So I get back to the office in London, everybody's jaws hit the floor. And it ended up making 5.5, it was 5.5 million Swiss francs. We sold it in Geneva. It was bought by Lawrence Graff, and he named the orange and the blue stones. And when we were talking, the build up to the auction, this woman, she said, oh, if it does really well, we'll be able to afford a nice tin of caviar. Then anyway, 2 days after the sale, as a present, a bucket of caviar landed on my desk, and I promise you, we had a dinner party for 15 people on it. And she was just that wonderful, wonderful soul. There was nothing complicated about her. Anyway, that was that. 6 months later, she calls again. And she says, Simon, we have a couple of other things. She was married, and she's quite elderly. She was in her 80s, no children. And I have a diamond necklace that we call the waterfall, and a sapphire brooch that we call the swimming pool. And at this stage, I didn't need to take a long weekend. I jumped in the car and ran up as quickly as I could. And just a slight diversion, I don't know if this will come up in 73 questions. I was lucky enough to have an amazing mentor. And at Christie's when I was in London. And to give a junior specialist the freedom to handle this, I can't imagine it would happen now. It was quite extraordinary. And I think as far as I'm concerned, when I was in New York, I would have been sitting right next to the specialist in the car. Anyway, here's the waterfall, which is a piece I'm sure you all know. It was in the Mogul and Magnificent sale. It had been sold in Geneva 3 or 4 years before, but this is when it first came to the market in 1990. And for those of you who went to the exhibition to see it, it is the most breathtaking jewel. And I'm afraid I went to the Christie's archive on their website, and it was pre-digitization. And I don't have a photograph of the swimming pool, but the swimming pool was a sapphire and diamond brooch, also by Cartier, and the sapphire was 300 carats. It was massive. And not only that, there was probably 30, 40, 50 pieces, just one beautiful piece of jewelry after the other. And I took one step back and I said, you know, this is, I don't know if I'll ever see anything like this in my lifetime again. There has to be a story behind this. You know, this is a world-class collection. Please tell me how the history of this was put together, and the provenance of the pieces and the history of the pieces. And I don't know if you know what it's like when you think, as the words are coming out of your mouth, you know you said the wrong thing. Because I got that sort of very glassy stare, and she said, Simon, I haven't questioned your estimates. I haven't questioned your commission. This is very private. And if you want to give it if you want to give it publicity like that, then I'm not interested. I'll get, and I was backtracking like mad. No, of course I understand, and we'll be very discreet, and it'll be exactly like before. Anyway, we were able to sort of reel it in again. And over the course of 2 sales, we divided the collection between London and Geneva. Just one thing sold better than the other. It was absolutely incredible. The final part of the story is about a year later, she called me and she said, Simon, we've organized our estate. We've given the money to all these different charities, but there's one more thing that I want to sell, and it's called the Rock. Well, if I've sold the waterfall and if I've sold the swimming pool, I have no idea what the Rock was. But once again, I jumped in the car and went up to see her. And this is an illustration of the jewelry business brings out different characteristics in people, good and bad. And I think this is an exemplary example of how to approach objects, works of art, life, however incredible they are, however valuable they are. Anyway, I get up there and she said, Simon, I've lost it. I can't find it. And we went through her house. She had 3 safety deposits in 3 separate banks. We spent 3 days drilling out these safety deposit boxes, and there was no sign of it. And she said, what can I do? You know, she took it in a very calm manner. It wasn't going to be the end of the world. And I've often speculated as to what happened to it, whether it got thrown out in the garbage, in laundry, if it was in a pair of socks, or whether it was a housekeeper who stole it, probably not knowing what she was taking. But it was the way she handled it was incredible. Anyway, I never found out who she was. And about 2 years later, we were back at our friends who lived close by again. And I heard somebody say, "Oh, did you hear Mrs. So-and-so died?" And I ran over and I said, "Oh, I met Mrs. So-and-so. We did a little bit of business at Christie's." And she said, and I said, "I always found her so nice, but she was very private and I didn't really know much about her." And this person had been a close friend of hers. She had been the illegitimate daughter of somebody called Solly Joel. And Solly Joel, along with Cecil Rhodes and Babe Barnato, have founded De Beers. And as an illegitimate daughter, and he couldn't publicly provide for her, this was her financial security for her lifetime. But whether it wasn't a life she wanted to lead, or whether it was shame out of the stigma that children out of marriage had at that time, thank goodness it's changed, it was really fascinating. Anyway, that's my waterfall story. And I'm looking at my watch with 73 questions. I mean, I know I'm sort of going on a rather long time, but I think it's a story worth telling, because I don't think I will ever again get involved in a series of pieces along with a story which is quite like that. Anyway, the Agra and this gave Christie's management confidence to send this rather fresh-faced young 30-year-old to New York to go from the number 3 in jewelry in London to run the jewelry department in New York. And I was so excited, and I arrived full of confidence and realized I actually knew very little and had to learn very fast. One of the perks of being in New York was that you go to these amazing places to go business getting, to go fishing for jewelry, whether it's be around the United States, up in Canada, or South America. And I thought, as being number 1, I could take what I thought was the plum region and going to Argentina. And ever since, I've been going to Argentina a lot and found wonderful jewelry down there. Anyway, on one of my visits down there, Cristina Del Campo at the time, she was our representative, she said, "There's somebody who has a special piece of jewelry. He won't tell me what it is. He won't tell me who he is. And he lives a 2-hour drive outside of Argentina, but he said that it will be well worth our while." And I thought, well, another day in Buenos Aires isn't bad. So, why not? You go all that way. So off we drive, and we go to this wonderful country house, this wonderful estancia. And the owner is this artist, and I go into his studio, very distinguished, very handsome, good-looking man, and dressed all in black. We go into his studio, the walls, ceilings, floor, all in black. And in the middle of the studio, which is a large room, there's this white table with a white tablecloth with a tiny little raised, not a dent, the opposite of a dent. We chat, "Oh, how are you? And, do you like Argentina? And what's your favorite airline?" And, sort of small talk and chit chat. And after about 20 minutes, I said, "Curiosity is getting the better of me. I assume that whatever I've come to see is under the tablecloth on the table." He said, "Yes." Anyway, with great theatre, he took off the tablecloth and he showed me this. and it was a sapphire and diamond brooch of the Argentine flag made by Van Cleef and Arpels. I think actually Oscar Hyman made it for Van Cleef in New York. And the Argentine flag being a pale blue, not a dark blue. They were these very washed out salon sapphires. And it was nice. It wasn't particularly attractive, these sort of sapphires, but it was a nice example of Van Cleef, and I invisibly set. And I thought, oh, well, you know, what's the, you know, with all of this fanfare, you know, what's he expecting? He said, Simon, there's also something else you need to know. And you got a glimpse of the slide. It was made for Eva Peron. And of course, this was the height of Evita, the Broadway show and the movie. And it changed everything. And a brooch that probably at the time was worth $20,000 to $25,000. There was huge subjectivity to it. And I asked him, I said, how much do you think we may get for this? Or how much do you think you'd be expecting? He said, I think I'd get $250,000. And I said, it's possible, but we can't start that. It would frighten people away, and we can do the marketing, and we'll do catalogs, we'll have press releases, we'll go to all these places. And we finally agreed on an estimate of $80,000 to $120,000. And in my life, up till then, I don't think I've ever seen so much publicity on a piece of jewelry. And Hollywood got in, you know, Hollywood showed interest, Broadway showed interest. We had an exhibition in Punta del Este in Uruguay, which is the sort of Hamptons of South America. And when we were down there for the exhibition, this huge star in Buenos Aires called Susana Jimenez came to see the brooch. And Susana, she's a fabulous character, absolutely fabulous. And she was South America's Oprah Winfrey, but looked like Donatella Versace. She was this sort of wonderful amalgam of characters. And anyway, she came to see the brooch, and she was a great Peronist, and she burst into tears, and she said, Simon, I have to buy this brooch. I'm going to bring my television crew up to New York. I'm going to dress up like Eva Peron, and I'm going to broadcast to my fans down in Argentina, me bringing this jewel back home for the country. I thought, fantastic, absolutely great. And so the sale arrives, and we were at Park Avenue at the time. It was before we moved to Rockefeller Center. Anyway, the sale day arrives, and the auction's going on, and about 20 minutes before the brooch is going to be sold, Susana arrives, not dressed as Eva Peron, but very flamboyantly dressed. And there were wooden floors at that time in the sale room, and the noise her stilettos made with her entourage. Everybody's looked round, absolutely agog, thinking, wow, who is this person? And she sort of sat in the front. And anyway, the bidding starts, and it goes to 80, 100, 150, 200. Starts to slow up to 50, and I get a huge sigh of relief, and I thought, great, you know, we've made the price that he was hoping for. And at about $300,000 or $350,000, the bidding starts to slow. And then a hand is raised from one of the telephone bidders, and it was somebody who we didn't know, didn't have a track record with jewelry at Christie's. So he had been on the telephone with a sort of relative junior member of the department, and off the bidding went, and it must have taken 10 or 15 minutes, 15 or 20 minutes. And literally it was like London pantomime. Every time Susanna bid, other people in the room cheered and clapped. When the telephone bid, everybody booed. And there was this to and fro, and it sells in the end for a shade under $1 million. And the only reason Susanna doesn't buy it, she leaves the room, running out of the room in floods of tears. And I pick up the telephone to thank the buyer and congratulate him. And he was a collector of historical manuscripts and historical memorabilia. And it was his wife's 50th birthday and wanted to buy her something special. What's interesting, it must have been about 12 or 15 years later, he calls me and he said, you know what, Simon, I don't know what got into me. My wife never wears that brooch. Can you sell it? And that can be the frenzy of auction in the moment. Just because something sells for a certain price, is that its value? Maybe, maybe not. It's difficult to tell. But Christie's did re-offer it, and they did sell it for considerably less. But it was quite a thing to be a part of. Lynn, I don't know how much more time I have.
You're doing great, Simon. Maybe one more story. I mean, it's really hard to stop the flow on these. They're amazing.
Well, this is a relatively short one. I thought this is a piece that I sold rather fairly recently, since I've become a dealer. Although it was a brooch that I sold when I was at Christie's in New York. It's the Camargo Ballerina brooch by Van Cleef and Arpels, made in 1942 for Marjorie Merriweather Post. We think purchased by her husband Joseph Davis for her. And I'm sure those of you who know Marjorie Merriweather Post was one of the great, sorry, I've got an itchy nose, one of the great business women and socialites of the mid-20th century, and had an astonishing jewelry collection. And this was a centerpiece. It's something I understand she absolutely loved. Designed by John Rubel, one of the great designers for Van Cleef. And it was designed after the 18th century French ballerina, Camargo, after which it was named. And that's a portrait of her by Nicolas Lancret, which is at the Wallace Collection in London. And for those of you who've never been to the Wallace Collection, it's amazing. Anyway, I sold it to a client of mine when I was at Christie's. And the client is now thinning out his collection, but this was something special to him. And I got an email from one of the directors of the Hillwood Museum, which was one of the residences of Marjorie Merriweather Post, and they were having an exhibition of her jewelry. And they understood that I had access to this, and would it be possible for them to borrow it? So I contact my client, and he's immensely generous, this client, and he does lend. I don't think it's been announced yet, but there's going to be an important jewelry exhibition in New York, and hopefully next year with everything that's going on. I don't know whether it'll have to be postponed, but he's lent some incredible pieces. And he said, of course, so this was lent for the exhibition. And it was at Hillwood, catalogue came out, it looked fantastic, everything else. And then it came out, And then before I returned it to the owner, I thought, well, should I or shouldn't I? And he didn't mind. I would only do it with the owner's permission. Maybe I should have some bragging rights here for an important piece of jewelry. So I put it on Instagram, saying, it's been so nice seeing you again. Sorry to see you leave. It's going back home. And of course, that created an absolute frenzy on Instagram. Everybody loved it. Anyway, a very important private collector who I was just getting to know because of that Instagram bought it, wanted to buy it, said, I'll give you X. I went to the owner and I said, I'll give you, I can get you X. He did very well. He said, great. So as we all know, I don't know, it's going to come up in 73 questions, never underestimate the power of Instagram. Okay, should we stop there?
Simon, that is a great note and a lesson to, I think, pause on the stories on. I just wanted to tell you, as you were telling these stories, how the chat box has been coming to life with comments just marveling at the depth and the amazing experiences that you've had. And thank you so much for sharing them with us. For
well,
me,
I've been very lucky. I've been very, very lucky. And there is, people say you make your own luck, but you do have luck in life.
You do. And these stories are absolutely all gems and completely unforgettable for everyone who is listening. So thank you so much, Simon.
Well, hopefully if I'm with Frank in September or in the fall, there'll be a few more.
And everyone, just so you know, we will be bringing Simon in person to the National Arts Club when we are allowed, and we hope you will join for that as well. But in the meantime, Simon, we're so excited because a lot of questions have come in through your storytelling, through the Instagram, through the registrations. And for everyone in the audience, the way this works is we'll just go rapid fire at Simon with 73 questions.
This is the nerve-wracking bit.
I have my counter right here, so I will be keeping track to make sure that we hit our target. And for people in the audience, just feel free to keep suggesting them, and we will get through as many as we can. I hope you're ready, Simon.
Yep, let's go.
Okay, here we go. Simon, what is your favorite time of the day?
Early morning, particularly if it's a lovely weather. Make a cup of tea, go out in the garden. I love it.
How do you take your tea?
With smoked Earl Grey with half a teaspoonful of sugar and a dash of milk.
What did you have for breakfast this morning?
Cocoa Pops with Leo.
How many people are you self-isolating with right now?
There are 7 of us.
Can we find out who they are?
My wife, Juliet, my eldest daughter, Sophie, her husband, Barnaby, 2 grandchildren, and Lulu, our youngest daughter.
What is your greatest strength, Simon?
Oh, yikes. I don't know if I have one. I think part of my luck in my job is having, whether it's at Christie's or whether it's in the shop, having great people around me. And maybe it's identifying people, great people to work with, because it's always a team. It's always a team effort.
Simon, what is one vice that you wish you could give up?
I hope my family are watching this. I'm desperately trying to give up smoking. It's so hard.
It's a good
but
one.
I'm trying.
What is a must-have piece of jewel that everyone should own?
A beautiful stone. It doesn't matter about the value. It can be a pink diamond or it can be a citrine. But if it's the right color and cut in the right way, a beautiful stone.
Simon, are you wearing any jewelry right now?
I'm wearing a coconut bead bracelet that came from Tanzania, and something else that came from it, a sort of silk band from India. And not my watch, because I'm hoping I'm not going to run out of time.
Okay. Do you have a favorite kind of gemstone?
Old mine cut diamonds.
Art Nouveau or Art Deco?
Art Deco.
Do you have a favorite period in jewelry?
It's all great, but if I if I have to single one out, second half of the 18th century.
Oh. Do you have a favorite jeweler?
Oh, that's so unfair. I have to go with Jar, but I don't want to take anything away from Viren or James or Stefan, or there are some great ones, but I have to go with Joel.
What are you currently reading right now?
Along the Enchanted Way by William Blacker. It's a journey through Romania in the 1960s. It's wonderful. Highly recommend it.
Do you have a favorite jewelry book?
Henri Vervet, French Jewelry of the 19th Century. Hans Nadelhofer, Cartier. And for indulgence, India. There's an Indian book on jewelry, something about enchanted jewels, or and that's indulgence because it's so beautiful.
Perfect. I see a bookshelf behind you, Simon. Can you share a couple of the books you have on there?
All my jewelry books are in at the shop, but there's the motorcycle exhibition from the Guggenheim. There's a compendium of Tintin, who I'm a great fan of. And there is a book called Safari, which is a story of an English family who moved to Kenya in the 1920s. That's also a great book.
Perfect. If you were to write a book, Simon, what would you title it?
Oh, crumbs. Oh, I don't know.
Crumbs is a great name.
Diamond Crumbs.
What did you study in university?
I did not go to university. And it's funny how it never occurred to me I wouldn't get a job. I did get the GIA from not the GIA, the FGA from the National Association of Goldsmiths, but I went straight into it. I was an appalling student at school.
Simon, your daughter recently shared a photo on Instagram with us.
Oh, God.
Can you see that? Can you tell us a bit more about this photo?
That was taken for an advertising campaign. And for the life of me, I can't remember the name of the photographer now, but he was a big deal. And I worked for a short time with Terry Betteridge. He was a great guy. And we did an advertising campaign, and we all dressed up in jewelry. And it was super fun. And believe it or not, I was on when people used to use telephone stands, and the telephone stand, there was a poster of that on 47th Street. I got given such a hard time.
What advice would you give to yourself at a younger age, Simon?
Be patient. If you work hard and if you apply yourself, good things will come.
What initially sparked your interest in jewelry?
I think it was the nature of the business as a whole. When I started at Christie's, I could have ended up in any department. Luckily enough, I think I had the choice of jewelry or silver. And the world of jewelry just seemed much more glamorous.
This question's from Margot in our audience. Have you ever attempted to make your own jewelry?
Absolutely not. I have, my hands are made up of thumbs. And I don't have the patience. I would be terrible.
What advice would you give to younger people trying to succeed in your industry?
Persevere, be true to yourself, meet as many people as you can, take advantage of incredible books that are out there, and where you can establish relationships. And going back to what I said, be patient.
Perfect. And from Judy joining us, can you tell the name, can you share with us the name of your mentor at Christie's?
His name was Albert Middlemas, and he was the most wonderful man. He was from the East End of London. I think he was the only director on the board of directors at Christie's who wasn't an Etonian. And a truer man you could never meet. He was a gem. And in his 90s and still alive.
He sounds wonderful. Simon, what is the best gift that you've ever received?
I got a wonderful present from Juliet for my 50th birthday, which was a family portrait by a friend of ours, an artist friend of ours in London, Julian Barrow, who sadly died. But it's just a moment of our time with the family that is a treasure.
And what is the best gift you've ever given?
My memory is so shocking, it'll have to be in the short term. I gave a really beautiful Belle Epoque natural pearl and diamond ring to Juliet for our 30th wedding anniversary. I enjoyed giving that.
It sounds lovely. What is a jewel that you've sold that you wish you could have kept?
I don't know. It's lovely buying jewelry. It's great buying jewelry, but once you've been on my side for a while, it's also great when it sells. Off the top of my cuff, because I'd got a couple of backup. Sorry, those 18th century Iberian girandole earrings in diamonds, not in paste. They're unbelievable.
Beautiful. Is there a piece in your current collection that you still can't bear to part with?
I have these have sold. I have another pair of 18th century diamond earrings, but just to vary it up a bit. I have a 13-carat brown diamond, which has got, it's lumpy and an open culet, and I don't have a photograph of it, I'm afraid. But again, brown diamonds used to be not popular, they are now, but it's just lumpy and chocolatey and gorgeous.
Love it. Simon, do you have a secret talent?
No. I do. I do enjoy drawing. I go to drawing classes. Whether I'm talented or not, I think would be for anybody watching. Juliet is always very kind, but I think she might be a bit biased. But I do love it.
If you could have any superpower in the world, what would it be?
Time travel.
That'd
be fun, wouldn't it?
Yes, to the 18th century, your favorite era.
And also going forward, it'd be fascinating to see.
Oh, I thought my phone was on silent. I'm gonna have to pick it up, Simon. Hang on. Hello?
Hi, it's Christine.
Oh,
Simon.
Christine.
I want to know, what are your desert island discs?
Oh, I'm going to give you my musicians. Rolling Stones, Pink Floyd, David Bowie, John Prine, Mozart, Beethoven, Nina Simone.
Did you catch that, Christine?
Yes, all agreed.
And the thing is,
thank you.
Christine hears them every day because I don't play anything else in the shop.
By the way, Simon, you're almost halfway through. That was question 31 from Christine. Simon, how would you describe your style in 3 adjectives?
Rather too relaxed.
Yes, 3 words. What is your favorite Instagram hashtag?
Oh, I never look up hashtags. I don't know, sorry.
Do you use TikTok?
No. I think even Lulu, my 18-year-old, is too old to use that. I think it's not for 12-year-olds.
What are a few characteristics that make for a good jewelry dealer?
100% top of the list, honesty. Then building a relationship, an eye for trends, and formulating good relationships.
When you look at a piece of jewelry, Simon, where does your eye go first?
It goes to the piece as a whole. It certainly doesn't go to a GIA certificate. It goes to the design, then the way it's constructed, then the condition.
From the jewelry maestro in our chat room, during your career, Simon, what was the toughest piece of jewelry to procure?
There have been a lot of, when I arrived in New York, a lot of battles with our arch rival Sotheby's at the time. Actually, I think the most difficult was the one that we lost, which was the estate of Mrs. Harry Winston. I just arrived in America, and it was in a courtroom in Fort Lauderdale, and I felt as if I was going into the courtroom with short trousers on. You know, I was so inexperienced, and it was hard.
Yeah. Simon, what is your favorite jewelry fair to attend?
It's got to be Hong Kong.
We do miss it. Do you give nicknames to pieces of jewelry?
No.
Do you have a nickname?
I do. Which trumps.
What is it?
Hold on, what's that? Hold on. Sorry, I didn't know what that was.
No worries.
Sorry, I'm on Sophie's computer. It might have been her mobile. My nickname is Chumps, which was my father's nickname to me when I was 5. And it's just continued all the way through to Leo, which is his name for me.
Amazing. Do you have a spirit animal?
My father, before he was married, had a spaniel called Simon. Does that count?
It does. Are you a cat person or a dog person?
Dog.
Do you have a dog?
Yes. Sadly, we lost one last week, but we do have another.
Oh, no. This question is from Josephine. What is the funniest jewelry-related story you have?
Not the funniest jewelry-related story, but in retrospect, a story that was funny is that when I first started in the auction world, I started at the bottom and I was helping porter a sale. And as the auctioneer was lifting this huge Bavarian carved oak wood cuckoo clock, I dropped it. And it went into literally 1,000 pieces. And I thought, well, this is a very short-lived auction career. And everybody couldn't have been nicer. And I think the owner was okay with it because I don't think it was going to sell very well, and they did better with the insurance.
Okay, Simon, we're on a desert island and you're stuck there. If you had to pick one food to eat forever without getting tired of it, what would you eat?
When I was in Rome for our son's wedding last year, I can't remember the name of the restaurant, but I had a spaghetti carbonara that I still dream about.
Sounds delicious.
Fantastic, delicious.
What is your favorite ice cream flavor?
Strawberry.
Do you have a signature dish?
What do you mean dish?
To cook.
To cook. Not really. I love cooking, but I'm very haphazard. I love Ottolenghi's cookbook, and I use that a lot.
If you could only have 5 pieces in your collection, which 5 pieces of jewels would you pick?
I would have the Agra Diamond.
Mm-hmm.
I would have the waterfall. I would have the girandole earrings. There is a suite of 18th century paste jewelry that we have in the shop. And I would have my wife's natural pearl earrings that she wears every day.
Great. Simon, what is the best vacation you've ever taken?
Thailand, which is when I was falling in love with Juliet,
Oh.
before we were married.
Where's one place you haven't been that you've always dreamed of going to?
Either Sicily, or I would also probably actually more Mongolia. Love to go there.
What is the most adventurous thing you've done in your life?
I think one of the most stupid things I've ever done in my life is when I was living in Kenya. We were on safari and a group of us got drunk one evening and we wandered across the Serengeti plain to try and spook another camp, which is about 1.5 miles away, making the noise of lions outside their tent. Stupid thing to do. But it was funny at the time.
Are you a trains, planes, or automobile kind of guy?
Planes if I'm in the right seat. Otherwise driving. I like driving.
What is the hardest part of your job, Simon?
For me, easy. Administration. I hate it.
That's why you have Christine. What is the best part of your job?
Finding something beautiful and then finding it a great home.
If we're going into happy hour, Simon, what would you be drinking?
Negroni.
What is your guilty pleasure?
Negroni.
Besides jewelry, do you collect anything else?
Not really. We love pictures and furniture and decorative arts, but we have a very eclectic assortment in our house.
Do you have a favorite movie, Simon?
The Third Man with Orson Welles.
Do you have a favorite actor or actress?
Current actors, I love Gary Oldman.
And a favorite television show?
Yes, Prime Minister.
If we made a movie about you, Simon, who would star as Simon Teakle?
Oh, God. No, that... Humphrey Butler.
Great choice. If you could switch lives with someone for one day, who would it be?
Kim Jong-un, and I'd free the country.
Great answer. What are 3 objects that you keep on your desk at work?
I have a little clay tray that Daisy made for me. I always like to have a couple of pieces of jewelry that I love, which I have in the shop. And recently, people might have seen on Christine's Instagram, my loop, which has been enhanced by James de Givenchy.
Amazing. You'll have to send us a photo of that. What is the oldest piece of jewel you've handled, if you had to guess?
Probably 16th century, but that would have been in my Christie's days. I start in the 18th now.
If you had $1 million to invest in one thing right now, what would it be?
Good question. Do you take something when something's at the bottom of the market or something that's red hot? I would buy an incredible Golconda white diamond, because the diamond markets are so soft at the moment, but I would buy a achingly beautiful old white diamond.
Sounds fabulous. Last 3 questions, Simon. I can't believe we're nearing our end. What is your favorite place to view art?
The Victoria and Albert Museum in London.
What is your favorite way to rest or to decompress?
I enjoy playing tennis. I enjoy traveling with Juliet. I enjoy going around museums with Juliet. I'm not always that good on my own.
And last question, Simon. what is one thing that most people don't know about you?
I think you better ask Christine that question.
Well, that's a great note, I think, to wrap up on. Thank you so much for playing 73 questions with us. That was absolutely brilliant. And I hope that everyone tuning in enjoyed Simon's stories as well as his candid answers to everything that we threw at him. We're impressed by your calm under fire, Simon.
I think Frank's next, isn't he?
He is. Frank Everett from Sotheby's will be tuning in with us this Saturday, and we hope everyone will join for that. And to everyone at home, we really hope that you enjoyed this talk. Any follow-up questions we can send directly to Simon, and we'll also be available on Instagram. We'll also be reposting the replay of this chat in 3 days on our website. Please tag any photos of us at Simon Teakle Jewelry and at GemX Club, hashtag Gemflix and hashtag Jewelry Distractions. Thank you so much for tuning in. And Simon, we hope that you enjoy the rest of this lovely day in Connecticut.
All right, well, thank you, Lynn, very much. It was great fun. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.